Mr. President, earlier today, President Biden announced his new, revised, supposedly curtailed social spending plan for America. It seems that the depressing economic numbers, the soaring costs of goods, mounting data that government spending is to blame, or perhaps some more moderate voices within the Democratic conference have forced him to walk this latest monstrosity back. Democrats who want control with the slimmest of majorities feel that they have a mandate to change more about American society and spend more money than any group of elected officials in American history. The White House Chief of Staff tweeted today, bragging that this deal is still twice as big as the New Deal in real dollars. Be it a $3.5 trillion or a little less, we've lost almost all sense of what money means, at least when it comes to money being spent by Washington, by public officials who congratulate themselves, each other, and are in turn congratulated by many in the media for spending other people's money, by spending money we don't have, money that ends up effectively being printed. The Founding Fathers entrusted Congress with the power of the purse because they expected Congress, which is the branch of government most accountable to the people at the most regular intervals, to be most likely to jealously guard the funds of those who sent us here, understanding that as every member of the House is required to stand for election every 2 years, and 1/3 of the members of this body are required to stand for election every 2 years, that ought to have an effect. It ought to have precisely the effect that we remember that it's not our money, it's the people's money, and that when we run out of it, we can't just pretend that we have more. When you do that, it causes problems, especially for the poor and the middle class. The framers assumed that Congress would be the most responsible branch in managing our nation's finances, again, because we're the branch most accountable to the people. But in this respect, we've failed. We failed in every sense. We failed dismally, miserably. Americans work for months out of every single year just to pay their federal taxes, and yet our nation is still barreling toward $30 trillion of national debt. We're now reaching devastating debt-to-GDP ratios that we've never contemplated during peacetime in America. And Americans are feeling the pain. Real Americans, everyday Americans. Inflation is at its highest rate in decades. Everything from gas to groceries, from housing to health care. It's all more expensive and getting more expensive every single day. We know from sad experience that this isn't going to go away anytime soon. Prices, once they go up, tend to stick. Meanwhile, President Biden apparently is not satisfied with only making things more expensive, but he's also making it harder and in some cases impossible for many Americans to work. His still unpublished vaccine mandate is causing millions of Americans to be at risk of losing their employment, or alternatively, acquiescing to federal medical extortion. These are everyday Americans, all too often struggling just to get by. They're not bad people. They're not people who we should shun. No, these are mothers and fathers. Some are first responders, and others are military heroes. There are neighbors, friends, and fellow citizens. They deserve the respect and autonomy to make this decision for themselves. And the Constitution, when properly followed, protects Americans from precisely this type of federal intrusion, especially this type of federal intrusion wielded by one man, one person, in one office. I've heard now from over 300 Utahns just in the last few weeks who are at risk of losing their livelihoods due to the president's mandate. These are just the ones I've heard from. For everyone I've heard from, there are many, many others who are being affected. Their stories are moving, and they're as moving as they are tragic, and we must do something to help. Allow me to be very clear. While I am very much against the mandate, I'm for the vaccine. I've been vaccinated. My entire family has been vaccinated. I've encouraged other people to get vaccinated. These vaccines are helping to protect many, many millions of Americans against the harmful effects of COVID-19. That does not, however, excuse the heavy-handed nanny-state approach of forcing this decision on Americans, of threatening Americans, coercing them, extorting them into doing the will of the President of the United States. This is not only an action not backed up by law or consistent with the constitutional separation of powers, but it's immoral, it's mean. To tell a mom or a dad, you're not going to be able to put food on the table for your children if you don't get a medical procedure that we want you to get, but that you don't want to get, for whatever reason, a religious reason, a particular medical condition that you've been warned about from your doctor, or whatever else it may be. People shouldn't have to choose between the ability to make a living and the coerced receipt of an unwanted medical procedure. This is why I've come to the Senate floor 11 times now to fight against the mandate, and why I'm going to keep coming. Today, I'm offering what should be an incredibly uncontroversial bill, my Transparency in COVID-19 Expenditures Act, which is co-sponsored by Senators Braun, Lummis, Sullivan, and Tuberville, would simply require an audit of COVID-19 relief funding. It would allow Congress to determine what spending in this pandemic worked and what spending did not. It would help us return a little bit of financial oversight and sanity and responsibility and accountability to Congress and to our government. This information would also allow taxpayers to see how their dollars are being spent and whether they're being spent wisely. It's that simple. I encourage my colleagues to support the bill. I'd like now to yield time to my friend and distinguished colleague, the senator from Wyoming.